Well, before we get started, I just feel like full disclosure. This album is my world, my sun, my moon, my stars. So that's the vibe here. Now, with that out of the way, these conversations always start with your origin story with whatever we're talking about. So, thinking back, can you remember hearing this album for the first time or being introduced to it or any of that stuff?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I can remember a time and a place. It wasn't so much. I mean, I wish I had the story of like I was just minding my own business, and then this miraculous thing popped into my life, and it changed me forever. The latter is true, but I was already a Janet super fan. I loved the album prior, which was Rhythm Nation. I knew all the choreography to everything. I had all the extras, the behind the scenes. I had the merchandise. I had it all. And I was like ready for, because most back then, especially artists would put out an album every few years. And so it was about time for her to put out a new album. And then in the middle of that, there was an announcement. I remember I was watching Entertainment Tonight of all things, and they were saying that Janet was going to be starring in a new movie with Tupac Shakur, and they were making fun of her because this was before there were any clips. There was no trailer. This was just like a teaser, sort of not blind item, but like gossip. And they were saying that, she's a hairdresser who has this relationship and goes on this adventure. And they were like, imagine that, a hairdresser with a Jerry curl, because they were still had this idea of Janet from the 80s. And I was like, she hasn't had a Jerry curl since the 80s, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I was like waiting with bated breath. And of course, the first single, the first unofficial single from the album, which was on the Poetic Justice soundtrack, was Again. And I was like, oh my God, this is a new. So that was my first taste of what was happening with Janet and getting ready for the film and everything. Of course, Again there was no images out. There was no video at the time. There was just the soundtrack. And then the first little teaser I got visually of Janet was a very rare commercial that was like between programs, and obviously it's a commercial, some kind of like teaser for Janet's new video. And they didn't even talk about what the song was going to be. It was like, hey, I'm Janet Jackson. It was as if the kids or Gremlins got a hold of a video camera, and it was she was just like there with the family. She's like, it's me, Janet. I got some new music coming out. I'm here with the kids. She called them the kids, the dancers. And it was, she was introducing all her dancers by name, which artists don't do that anymore, and I rarely did. Of course, J-Lo was one of those dancers. Mm-hmm. And it was just her and her rapport with these dancers. Of course, it was preceding the That's the Way Love Goes music video. So it was obviously filmed on the set of That's the Way Love Goes, which looked like it was in her house. Anyway, I'm talking a lot about this.
This is the good stuff. This is carry on as
Have you seen that? Have you seen that clip? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, and it's really highlighted the relationship between Janet, and the dancers, and sort of all the different personalities that they had. And I could not wait for this video. I was like, what is this video going to be? I thought it was going to be this huge dance video. She's introducing dancers. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to do it again. And, obviously what we got was a lot more mellow, mm-hmm. which I loved.
Right.
Because it was introducing a new Janet, a new sexy vibe.
Yeah. And I was just reading, I mean, I kind of knew this, but being reminded of like the internal discussions going on between Janet and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis about, which single should be the lead single, and that it was supposed to be
mm-hmm.
If. And then Chuck D getting involved and being like, oh, that's a good song. It sounds like Janet. And they're like, see, it is a continuation of Rhythm Nation. Do we want that? Do we want, we want to announce a new era. We want to show people that, she's moving into a new phase of her career. And it was so smart. And,
it was genius.
And like, obviously, if then coming after that was like, just like mind blowing.
It was like a smack in the, it's like she kicked us in the face. with some of the most iconic dance music video imagery and dance choreography that still exists, I think. I mean, anybody that's does jazz or hip hop dance today, even if they're only in their 20s and they're young, because I work a lot with dancers, whenever I encounter, all I have to do is see them do is like one or two things, whatever they're going to do. And that's literally not only something that we've seen Janet do, but like that is literally a move in If. And, of course, there's nothing new under the sun. Human bodies can only move in so many different ways. And everything's cyclical. But that being said, the choreography that Tina Landon and Shawnette Hurd and all the other people that contributed, that we may or may not know how much they contributed to the choreography in that piece or on that album. It's iconic. It is just iconic because it was created in a time when music video dancing was really being solidified as something that people could learn on their own. Like, we went from Michael Jackson to like, okay, that's Michael Jackson, and nobody else is Michael Jackson. Like, we're going to watch him, and people could pick up some of his moves, but we weren't seeing people getting the choreography. People could understand like the moonwalk, and Thriller was obviously extremely iconic choreography. But besides that, there wasn't a lot of dance moves that like you would just pick up from the video that easily that were that complex. And like If is an entire dance piece, and it was extremely erotic for the time that it came out in.
I read some idiot did little one paragraph reviews of all of her albums, and
recently or back then?
Last 10 years. So this is like a retrospective thing.
Okay.
And like 5 stars for Control, 5 stars for Rhythm Nation, 4 stars for Janet, and like, yeah, she's just trying to be all sexy, and it just comes off, it's like really cringy and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what the are you talking about? It is like this moment for her where she is so like coming into her own. She is really fully like exploring her sexuality, talking about it, and feeling comfortable with it when she had grown up with these notoriously repressive father who wanted to control every single aspect of her life and was wanting her to not be sexual in any way. And this whole album is just like the sexiest thing ever. The lyrics that she wrote, the way she is talking about sex is just like so full on and just no holds barred. And the way it's like, it's so perfect. It's such a perfect encapsulation of what those feelings are. Ugh.
I can listen to this album straight through. Not that I wouldn't do that with a Janet album, but like this, I do think that there was something sort of formulaic in Janet's style, not only from the music, the way that Jimmy Jam, I was doing a song of my own, and the songwriter, I was like, oh, can we go like a little bit like this? And he was like, oh, you mean like a Jam and Lewis major fourth? Like that, like that's a thing. But not only the way that the songs are created and sort of constructed, but then also the format and how like she has a lot of interludes between, historically has had a lot of interludes between her albums or songs in the album. And it kind of lays out a story and a journey. And from that moment, you can tell that she's in its pillow talk, from all the way through the album, from the very first interlude, called Morning, I think,
Mm-hmm.
where, you know, she is telling us about, you know, we had the kind of night where morning comes too soon. We use the light from the flickering candle across the room to make the kind of shadows that only one thing could make, love. That is like
Oh, me.
so poetic and so beautiful. And it's not just about sex, you
Mm.
know? And so obviously I disagree with whoever that person was.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like they were more favoring, you know, obviously Rhythm Nation was so, for the most part, although it had like some sexy moments, Someday Is Tonight, like is extremely, like she's basically like masturbating on tape.
Mm.
I know that there's like some sexy moments. Both Control and Rhythm Nation have like a sexy song or a sex song. But you know, like Rhythm Nation was just so stern and very, it was like very like agender, very devoid of like any sexual feelings. And obviously it was very social, political, you know, commentary. So we've like, the first time I ever saw Janet's stomach was for the, not to get off topic, but was for Love Will Never Do Without You video, which was like basically filmed a lot closer to the Janet era, the Janet album era,
Mm-hmm.
than it was to the rest of the other stuff on Rhythm Nation. And so that was like really a precursor to let us know that this sexiness was coming, like, you know, Something Simple in Jeans, Herb Ritts, wonderful
Mm-hmm.
director and photographer. But yeah, I disagree with that person. And in fact, you know, if that person were able to take themselves back to 1993, maybe 1992, when this was probably being written and then released in 1993, we were just getting into an era where we were like, we were forced to talk about sex in a new way because of the AIDS and HIV epidemic. And people had been so guarded and so non-sexual. And we were also coming out of, you know, we were 1992, we were coming out of the Reagan era into Clinton, Bush into Clinton, where it was a Republican, you know, administration into Clinton, which we know lots of things were going on with him. And we were trying to be open and in touch with our sexuality, in a way that wasn't seen as a death sentence. And figuring that out took some time throughout the 90s. But I do think music played a big part in that. And if music played a part in us sort of reconnecting with our sensuality through dance moves, through listening to music and through writing the lyrics and things like that, then the Janet album definitely contributed to that, because we were watching someone who was is a superstar, but definitely was one of the part of the biggest musical family in American history, to go from being a teenager who was like not expressing her sexuality, to young adulthood, where she obviously was young adulthood. She was definitely an adult by that time, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
she was straight up 30, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and also that kind of stuff about like the AIDS epidemic and the way that sex felt for queer people at that time is not separate to what Janet was doing. And it makes me want to cry. She's so like, Ally doesn't cover it. The way that she feels about queer people, the way that she expresses her love and admiration for queer people, and that reciprocal joy that comes between,
Oh.
you know, our community and her, is so. I think this album, especially, this was the beginning of that being really overt in her work. And that just makes it so special to me too, that it wasn't like, I'm expressing my sexuality and it's something for you to watch passively. It's like, and I want everybody to express their sexuality and be safe and be joyful.
It was definitely an open invitation, and it was as if she was communicating that this is a well, I don't want to say free zone, because that's literally a song on the next album, but like this is a call to action for people to come in and participate and be express their sexuality and everything about themselves. And you should know, if you're going to come into this area, that like everybody else is invited as well. And there really wasn't anything about, just short of her expressing her own personal experiences, there was nothing about a song about sex that communicated that it has to be, quote, heterosexual sex, that it has to be male and female or cisgender sex. Like, it was like you're saying, it was just open. This is for everybody to experience and participate with, in which was beautiful because it really allowed me as a young queer person to be the camp counselor that taught the if choreography to everybody in the dance class. And it wasn't like, this is only for the straights, this is only for the gays, or you're gay if you're doing this, or you're this if you're that. It was just like, here we are, this is sexy, and we're all here. And I do think that, you know, she and definitely Madonna were two pop stars that were able to sort of overtly, but then also in a really sort of natural and non-performative way, and be inclusive. You know, and that felt, I mean, that maybe that's part of the reason why I was so drawn to both of those ladies, but definitely Janet, in the way that I was. Yeah.
Yeah. And that feeling of authenticity and knowing that both of those women are surrounded by queer people, not by chance, but by design, and have, you know, queer family, are immersed in the community and the culture. And yeah, really expressing that and making it this huge part of the work that they do is incredible. Anyway, the point is the music, which another, I mean, I don't want to harp on about this dickhead, but in that same article,
Who is this? What is their name?
he writes for The Guardian.
You can bleep it out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're queer, probably.
No, that's
No.
maybe part of the problem. And he was saying something like he's usually smart and has good opinions about things. Like he isn't, you know, snooty about popular music, any of that stuff. But he also was saying like, oh, it's an uneven album and it's all over the place and tonally it just shifts all the time. And it's like, you're saying that that's a negative? Like this is 75 minutes of music, and the scope of it is so huge, and the roller coaster of emotions and tempos and whatever.
This person is so young. I don't mean to cut you off, but that really incenses me because we were not only dealing with the AIDS epidemic, we were literally coming off of Rodney King and really wild race relations, right? And so that's where the song with Chuck D comes into play. We were coming in, and not to mention she had just, you know, done Poetic Justice, which was, she credits as being a sort of an awakening, both sexual and social for her. And so this album didn't have to address all the things that it did, but like in the grand fashion of Janet, she does address love and sex. She addresses the social situations that we're in as a country, and it is the 90s. The 90s, I mean, I was born in the 70s, but I have to tell you, the 90s were like, if I could sit and watch, I'd say the most intersectional decade for music was the 90s. Hip hop was literally merging with heavy metal. And, you know, every white girl who had been known for just like pop, fluffy pop, was suddenly having a hip hop beat, Madonna, behind them. You like, people were like, there's no such thing like 90s. If there was ever a time to have an album that felt like it was like really eclectic in terms of musical styles and genres, it was the 90s. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And it was like listening to this album for the first time. It is, like you said, it's an album that I can listen to the whole way through without, there's like no skips for me. I love
not a single one,
the whole thing start to finish. But going through it and listening, I was like, I cannot believe that all of these songs are on one album. Like this is crazy. This is like a greatest hits. And getting like stuff like Throb, which I could talk
oh my God,
for days. At that time, you know, two of the pillars of my musical life were R&B and house
music.
And it's like, she did that on SNL, and
you tell me, you don't tell me about that.
Ooh.
I know. Did you? And they also released. I watched a. Not to cut you off. I'm so sorry.
No, no.
I watched. Of course, I taped that SNL and like recorded the entire performance and learned all the choreography and the Jean Paul Gaultier fashions that were going along with it. But then also, I was watching like VH1 or something during the day. I was home from school, from high school, and saw another Janet Throb SNL performance as performed on SNL, like on VH1 or some video. Somehow the video was playing on something. It was like a different take. It was like the rehearsal take or something, or like I don't know why, but I could tell like one dancer was wearing something different. I was like, that's what's going on. And so like I consumed that, and it sucks that I can't say it sucks. They've got their reasons. Certainly it's money. It's a shame that SNL guards their content, and up until a couple of years ago wasn't really releasing a lot of their musical performances anywhere for you to see until very recently they started doing that. And Janet Throb is one of those that they haven't really released yet. So you can see it, but like in like other like sort of like second, not really like a YouTube moment, in high quality. It's a shame because like these are some great performances, especially those early 90s performances where the music was so great in the early 90s. Anyway, Throb, brilliant song, uh bringing the reality of like a queer house dance floor to which like was like preceding a little bit, our preceding or our introduction would be our foray into also the world of ballroom later on. I just think that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Throb.
Yeah. Just and talk about sexy. I and that SNL performance to me, I think at the time, the 90s were very formative years for me. I was a teenager. It's like when I was figuring my out and really solidifying my taste and developing taste that's outside of my parents and my sisters and whatever. And because it was the 90s and we didn't have the internet and there were very few places where you could watch videos, but even more so watch live performances of the artists that you loved, and seeing her choose that song to do on SNL, it was like she's speaking to me. Like she knows exactly what I want. She knows exactly what's in my brain and she's giving it to me.
Yeah. It was masterful. It was such a well done performance. And there was just something, it was just so, and it was almost like it was also a dance battle, right? The actual performance of the piece on SNL was a dance battle, essentially, which I had never really seen that kind of thing happen. I guess in the 80s, we've certainly seen like with breakdancing, we'd seen that dynamic between dancers where like they go, we go, and then we like are like who's doing it better. But like to see that in a mainstream music setting on an SNL felt very much like we're seeing what happens on the streets or in the clubs. Like that's literally what we're seeing. And if you're not of age to go into the clubs, this is what that is. And knowing that Janet would like, reportedly like go to the clubs to choose to pick her dancers, of course it makes sense. This is probably what some of them were doing. I had a chance to listen to, I don't know how you feel about mentioning other shows on your show, but there's another show that is by a Canadian content creator who is obviously a very big Janet fan and interviews all of her dancers, past, present, and future. You should check it out. It's wonderful because that's where you can get some like real behind the scenes tea about like what was going on, what, all that.
Yeah.
And of course she's okay. It's called The Kelly Alexander Show. And she now has a second show with Tina Landon, who was Janet's choreographer for many years. But she's interviewed every single person that stands for Janet that's still able to be interviewed. And then now she and Tina have a show that's over on their Patreon, but they do put clips out on social media. But the Kelly Alexander Show, which was really up and pumping during the pandemic. I think that was when it was new. And her like directive was like, I'm going to interview every single Janet dancer and get all the, and then she interviewed Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. She interviewed like everyone. So you get some real behind the scenes tea, and they talk about like when they first met Janet, how they got found. Some of them were actually in the club, and Janet, like they tell that story. Some of them were at auditions, obviously. And speaking of great content, there's another show. It's not a show. There's a series by somebody named John Cameron, who I guess analyzes music, the musical attributes of albums. And so he did Janet, Jam, and Lewis deconstructing 30 years of music. And so he goes through all the albums, but Janet is a big one. He's got 2 pieces on the Janet album, and somehow he got a hold of what we call stems, the actual like ingredients of a song that are separate tracks that are put together to make a whole song. So like just the drums, just the cymbals, just the vocals, just the things. And so he got a chance when this is called deconstructing. He deconstructs it, and we hear things that we wouldn't hear in the mix. And then he interviews Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis on why they chose that instrument, what was going on in the studio that day that's all I gotta say.
I have to get into that. I grew up in the Twin Cities as well, so Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are very like, hometown pride. Like anything involving them or Prince or any of that is just like, makes me feel like, oh. And the fact that all of these amazing Janet albums were recorded in suburban Minneapolis, it was always like listening to Escapade, and she goes, Minneapolis. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I had like no connection to Minneapolis other than all of this great music was coming out of there. Right. And so, the dance capital of the world, apparently. and yeah, Morris Day and The Time, Prince, all of them, all the greats,
Yeah.
that Minneapolis sound.
The best. Like, yeah, incredible. I think anybody who has even the vaguest idea of your work, who's seen anything you do, understands that there's a pretty clear link there between you and Janet. But I guess for people who don't know, or maybe there are ways that you feel connected to this music that you have not, presented to the world. But just thinking about like the impact of this album on your life, and the way we've talked about, the way it's kind of moved you emotionally. But are there things that you've picked up on that influences, whether that's in your life as a whole or in your career, that feel like there's that direct line to this album? I mean, outside of the incredible If video that you did that I can't stop.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope you enjoyed it.
I can't stop watching it.
I mean, Janet is a massive influence. It's quite referential at this point, for sure. I think anybody that watches any of the video content that I've created can see that. But everything from hairstyle choices to music video, the way I film my music videos, to using as a model, like I mentioned, the relationship that Janet has to her dancers. It's, I think it's a good thing to treat people well and keep a good family, and which is, I think, a good thing. And I'm sure that that's something, I know that that's something, at least at the time, that Madonna was doing, and Janet was doing at the same time. I picked up on that very early. And so I guess the blueprint was sort of set for me very early with Janet, in terms of like, oh, this is a pop diva. She's got these brilliant dancers around her that she cares for as their family, and they're all very individual and eclectic. And so that's what I'm going to do when I'm 30, when I'm 40, but also like when I was like 13, because then when I formed a dance troupe called Colorblind, where all we did was Janet songs in Colorblind. I was like, we have the group, we'll get together. I want to put it together and like have these individual like personalities that are very clear and distinct and strong. So we did all the Janet. And I had gone and seen the Janet concert with my mom. That was the first Janet Jackson concert that I'd seen, and it was the first like major concert that I'd seen. And the program for the Janet concert, for the Janet album, was this sort of sepia tone, black and white, but like warm black and white. I don't remember who the photographer was. I think it might have been Ann Leibovitz. I don't remember. Some famous photographer. I can look it up. Did the program, and the program was like, it's not a typical program. It's not like, this is the show you're going to see and these are the songs. It was like, these are the pieces of the costume. These are how the costumes were created. Here's like little clips of like the fabric snippings, and here's each dancer, and this is where they're from and what they like to do, and really lets you know about like who everyone is in the band and the dancers and the thing. And everybody had a picture. It was like a big playbill, but like way more editorial. And so like, I was like, that's what we're going to do for my dance troupe. And like, I got black and white film, because back in the day you had to get black and white film for your camera, and took the pictures of the dancers laying in the grass and just like these weird pictures to kind of emulate the vibe that Janet had. And then I took it to Kinko's copies and got the book printed and bound. I got one copy made. I may have got 2 copies, and I was like, here's our program. I don't know. I just kept it. But so yeah, Janet was an influence as minute as that, like down to that little minutia. But then all the way up into when I was recording music, my first 2 albums, the first 3 albums really, all have, and probably will continue to have, a sort of Janet sensibility when it comes to the sort of balance of the types of songs that are on there, but then also the interlude moments that really help sell and tell the story, and you can tell a story. I mean, I know that there's an argument for interludes literally just being wacky outtakes of stupid stuff that like make you laugh and sort of are a departure from those things. But then there's also the idea that like it's sort of a narration and it takes you beat by beat through the story between the songs, to sort of tie them all together. And so that is for sure how Janet has influenced me. And then as like obvious as like you mentioned, some of the content that I've created, I've literally done some Janet remakes, of video tributes, I should say, where we try our best to emulate the original feel of some of the songs that she, music videos that she put out, Rhythm Nation and If. I did one on my own for Every Time, from the Velvet Rope album. And we're about to do another Velvet Rope song together again, out in the desert. And so, it's Janet all day long with me.
Yeah. Oh my God. Amazing. That is going to be so good. Yeah, just like what you were saying about her relationships with her dancers. I think that's still happening now. Like I saw her a couple months ago, and
I didn't get a chance to see her. Mad.
I don't want to rub salt in the
I don't want
wound,
to hear. God, you are already. But go ahead. How great was it? You can go.
I had a little meet and greet.
Oh, I'm gonna kill you! Are you lying to my soul?
I went out of my body like she touched me.
What am I gonna do?
It was like 9 seconds, but it was just
that's 9 minutes to me. My Janet meet and greet, I've told this story before. It wasn't really a meet and greet. My mom took me to the Janet concert, and because I consume every single thing that there is to consume, and they used to do a lot of promotion in partnership with like MTV and all these different channels and platforms around albums. So Janet's tour was sponsored by MTV for the Janet album. And so they had specials all summer long about Janet, and they would go to her shows. They went to her concerts several times and interviewed there and showed footage. And so the kickoff special, which I think, no, it might have been in Detroit. If it wasn't, it was either Minneapolis or Detroit. Some Midwest places where it kicked off. And I'll never forget, John Norris and Bill Bellamy were the anchors that were like volleying back and forth and interviewing Janet and like pre-interviews with Janet, and then showing clips and musical selections. So they did it like 3 or 4 musical selections that they showed. But they like, I didn't realize they edited them into their own, for their own show, which they showed later. It wasn't like a live broadcast. They rearranged them. So they played with Janet's playlist. And I didn't know that. And so when, after Rhythm Nation, I was like, Mom, we need to leave because the show's over. And I was like, Mom, I think it's over. She's like, okay, let's beat the crowd. Let's go. And then we're out there. And then I hear all this screaming and hollering and more music comes on. And she did This Time from the album. And I was like, Mom, it's still going. So we ran back in and we watched the rest of the thing. So then this time when it was over, we were a little discombobulated because I was like, are you sure it's over? Let's not go. Let's wait. So we hung for a minute because I was like, it might not be over. Like, I was like terrified that it might not be over.
Right.
And so we ended up leaving. So the crowd had mostly left. And I was like, okay, the crowd's gone. It's over. And we went out into the parking lot. We were like, it was like Thriller. We were like suddenly by ourselves in the parking lot. And we're crossing, this is in Philadelphia. We're crossing with the street or whatever in the parking lot. And I like run out into the thing because it seems like nothing. All of a sudden, a tour bus comes up and like nearly hits me. Like I was like this close to the tour bus. And, you know, the way that a lot of tour buses are like built is like it has a flat front and the driver is like right up against the window and you can kind of see into the bus and there was a curtain and I was like, oh my God. And my mom was like, oh, like, you know, that whole moment, like my baby's gonna get killed. And she collects me back and the tour bus doesn't go and we're looking and then the driver says something and the curtain opens and somebody sticks their little head out. It's Janet. Stuck her head out and was like, oh my God. And then the door, people were like, it's Janet! And like people like zombies running from every crevice of the, like coming out from under the thing. We're like, is that Janet? And they ran through and like pushed us out of the way. And she opened the door and started signing autographs in the thing. And I couldn't not, I was like, I was young. That was too much. Like I was getting trampled. So like my mom was like, we're leaving. But I was watching her meet and greet these people. And I don't think I think I would have just like spontaneously compulsed. I didn't have the confidence or the anything to ask for anything. I was just like, and then my mom was like, let's go. And she waved though. I was the first person she waved at because she almost hit me. So
yeah. Yeah.
Are you alive? Okay, bye.
Oh, yeah.
Now wait. I mean, this is edited, right? Okay, I'm gonna go get something to show you.
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right.
One moment, darling. I think you're gonna appreciate it.
Okay, I am ready.
So, I have the program that I want to show you from the Janet concert. You probably already have it, but I still have my program from when I was a youngster. My mom got me the program here.
Oh my God.
From the Janet concert. And that's all we could afford. Because these things were pricey. So there's the program from the Janet concert. And so had that, and I loved that, whatever. It was great. It's beautiful stuff. Some of this photography ended up being like the cover art for the I think the Because of Love music video, or not music video, single. And so there's the program. Great, lovely, beautiful. Of course, I peeped out every aspect of her costuming and everything, both in the tour, but then also in the music videos. And at the counter, there was some Janet jewelry. The Janet jewelry, I guess tour jewelry, had been on sale for the Rhythm Nation concert at a store called Hot Topic, which you probably
iconic.
Remember.
Yes. They're still around.
So I got they're still around. I got to my surprise, I was somewhere in the Midwest and was like, Hot Topic. And I was able to get her her key earrings that she famously wore on her ear.
Amazing.
in the like Rhythm Nation like pendant, which is like the 1814 on there. And so I was able to get that as a teenager from Hot Topic. Or anyway, I got it. But we weren't able to afford her necklace, which was at the Janet concert, which was looked like shells, very like southwestern native jewelry. And so I wanted to get it. And so a couple of years ago, I was searching online for it for the tour version, which was like a replica of the one that she wore in her music videos. In digging, I found the creator, like the living, breathing creator of the jewelry, who is Mary and Doug Hancock from Mummy's Bundle. And I was able to discover a whole bunch of beautiful, beautiful jewelry that they created. A lot of it looked like the stuff that Janet was wearing back at the time on the tour, and then also in the If music video and in the That's the Way Love Goes music video. So I asked her, like, do you have anything? She's like, let me see if I can make something. I really enjoyed making jewelry for Janet. She didn't have anything, and it was beautiful that we were able to talk because she was able to give me some detail about some of the stuff that she had done. So I was on a mission to find jewelry created by her, because I was like, if she created this like bone necklace for Janet, there's got to be more out there, so let me scour the internet. So I did, and I was able to find Janet's choker that she wears in the video for That's the Way Love Goes, and created by Mary and Doug Hancock. Here's the little like certificate of authenticity, and it turns out it's not bone. It's made of it's these shells. It's like a type of seashell. Anyway, this is like way too much of a deep cut. But then later on, I was so obsessed, I was later on able to find the replica version that was sold at the concert that I was never able to afford. And this is made of plastic, but it looks very similar, and it's, has the same kind of thing, cheaper sort of materials made. But yeah, it probably would be cultural appropriation for me to wear this today, but it's just I almost never break this out.
Yeah, just
okay, I've passed the point of obsession. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take this into a
I'm with you.
realm.
This is a safe space for obsessive Janet thoughts. So, oh my goodness. I cannot explain to you how much of a true joy this experience has been. I have loved every single minute of talking with you about this stuff. It's so fun to be able to just like nerd out with other Janet fans. So words cannot express how appreciative I am.
Well, likewise, I feel the exact same way. So anytime you want to have a Janet conversation, let me know.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for making time for me. And I really appreciate it. This has been so wonderful.
Absolutely.
Hey, do you want more conversations with incredible people talking about the movies and music they love? Then subscribe to the Spark Parade YouTube channel.